When Evelyn Brooks bought an abandoned mountain cabin for $5, she thought she was buying silence, a place to heal, far from the noise and pain of the city. But that silence had a pulse. Beneath the floorboards, something waited. Not a ghost, not a monster, but a golden retriever covered in ash and scars, guarding secrets that refused to die. Then, one night, the smell of smoke returned to the valley, and the fire that destroyed everything once before began to breathe again. If you had found them first, what would you have done? Before we begin, support us by subscribing to the channel and ringing the bell so you'll never miss a story filled with love, hope, and the quiet miracles of life. The storm came in off the Pacific and held. Rain worked the hills above Silver Creek into a matty green and laid a cold film on everything. Road, fences, the hand-painted store signs on Main Street. Fog sat low in the Douglas firs. The two-lane road out of town climbed along the river, patched and narrow, the kind that makes you ease the wheel and watch your mirrors. Evelyn Brooks drove the old Ford with both hands, wrists loose, eyes steady. 37, compact, and built from years of lifting other people's weight, she wore a gray beanie over dark hair threaded with early silver. Her face was plain and readable, the look of someone who prefers a plan to a speech. Grief had put a tight crease between her eyebrows, but it hadn't hardened her. It had made her careful. Noah, 8, sat quiet in the passenger seat. He was small for his age, with a mop of sandy hair and pale skin that freckled when the sun showed. His jacket was zipped to his chin. A whistle on a cord lay against his chest, once a joke from his father, now a keepsake. He watched the tree line like it could answer questions. They took the last bend and the clearing opened. The cabin stood in the center, low and square, cedar logs gray with age. One corner of the roof sagged. Two front windows were clouded. One carried a long diagonal crack. The porch was littered with wet needles and a single cracked boot. The place had cost $5 at a county sale. Even the auctioneer had looked like he wasn't sure why it was still on the list. Evelyn cut the engine. The rain drummed on the roof and then softened. For a breath, they sat in the quiet click of cooling metal. Evelyn reached for Noah's hand. "We'll make it work," she said. It wasn't a promise. It was a plan. They stepped out. The clearing felt slick under the grass. Noah tested each board on the porch before he put weight on it. He wasn't timid. He was methodical, the way kids get when the last year has required too much bravery for their age. Evelyn put a shoulder to the swollen door. It gave with a low groan. The smell inside was damp wood and cold ash. A small room opened to a compact kitchen. A narrow bedroom sat behind a thin wall. The front room held a wood stove on cracked tile, a slumped couch, a small, scarred table, and two chairs that didn't match. On the far wall, a rectangle of lighter wood showed where a picture had hung for years. A single red clay mug with a chipped handle sat on a shallow shelf by the door. Evelyn propped the door for air. She tied a bandana over her nose and found a broom behind the stove. "Windows first," she said, more to set a rhythm than give instructions. Light makes everything else easier. Noah moved in careful arcs, learning the room by touch and sound. He tried the kitchen tap. The pipes coughed, spat brown, then cleared. "We'll boil it," Evelyn said, setting a pot on the stove out of habit, even before fire. The stove was old cast iron with a stubborn door. Evelyn built the fire the way she'd been taught to do most things. Small, steady steps, no drama, kindling, paper, a match shielded by one palm. The fire caught and built. Heat pushed back against the damp. Noah eased open a shallow drawer in a bedroom dresser. He found a little tin box with a sliding lid. Inside, a few dull buttons, a brass safety pin, a nickel, and a small key. He pocketed the key without comment and set the other things back in place. They worked without fuss, sweeping, wiping, shaking out a thin quilt she had packed, because quilts make even a bad room look intentional. Evelyn checked the window latches. She set 2 battery lanterns, one on the table, one on the mantelboard above the stove, to even out the room's hard corners. She opened 2 cans of soup, added a scoop of rice, and set the pot on the stove. The smell came up simple and familiar. Noah wandered the perimeter and found a frame face down on the mantel. The glass was cracked, but the picture held. A man in a yellow Nomex jacket, helmet tucked under one arm, a jaw square under a day's stubble. A short white scar arced through his right eyebrow. He had the squinting smile of someone used to bright heat and long days. The shoulder patch read, Silver Creek Wildland Rescue. Black trunks of burned trees rose behind him. He looks strong, Noah said. Looks like he shows up, Evelyn answered. She set the frame upright. They let the man be. They ate at the small table. Noah tasted, then ate like a boy who had been hungry but waiting to trust the food. We can keep the mug? He asked, turning the chipped handle under his thumb. We'll keep it, Evelyn said. They spoke in ordinary lines to make the space theirs. The creek they had crossed, the school bus route posted on the notice board in town, the idea of a shelf for Noah's drawings. We'll build one, she said. He asked if they could plant a garden. Carrots will do fine here, she said. Facts, not promises. Outside, the rain stepped back to a light tap. The room took on the kind of warmth you notice only when your fingers lose their sting. Evelyn rolled out 2 sleeping bags near the stove and shook a blanket over them. She placed their boots side by the door. Small order in an unordered room. Noah explored once more with the confidence of a place that had not yet surprised him. In the bedroom, he checked the shallow closet and the space under the bed frame. In the kitchen, he opened the cabinet under the sink and noted the trap's condition like he'd seen his father do 100 times. Then closed it again. He stopped at the mantel and looked at the picture. Do we know his name? Not yet, Evelyn said. We'll ask in town. The fire eased to a steady glow. The stovepipe ticked as it settled. The forest changed its sound for night. Less wind, more small movements. Noah lay back and watched the stovepipe disappear through the ceiling. It's loud, he said. It's a working place, Evelyn said. Old buildings talk. He nodded, small and firm. He pulled his sleeping bag up to his chin and left one hand outside, fingers resting on the whistle. They both heard the new sound at the same time. Not the pipes, not the stove. Something under the floorboards along the back wall. A faint scrape, pause, then another, measured, the way an injured thing tests a path. Noah sat up and looked at his mother. Evelyn's head tilted. She followed the line of the baseboard with her eyes and did not move yet. She counted 3 more passes in the same pattern. She let out a slow breath she didn't know she had been holding. Probably mice, she said, keeping her voice even. We'll look in the morning. Okay, Noah said. He lay back obediently, but his eyes stayed open a while longer. Evelyn set 2 more small logs on the coals and nudged the air vent. She hung the poker back on its hook and lay down beside her son. The room fell to the steady sounds, fire drawing, rain soft on the eaves, the building's old wood talking to itself. After a long minute, the scraping stopped. Evelyn watched the lantern light make a dull oval on the ceiling. She ran a simple inventory in her head, the kind that keeps panic out. Heat, water boiled, food for 2 days, dry socks, roof to check, chimney to sweep, neighbors to meet, the school office to call. She let the list end without adding the things she could not control. She looked over at Noah. His eyes had slid closed. The whistle rose and fell with his breathing. Tomorrow, she said, barely above a whisper. She meant the work. She meant the search for a new pattern. She meant the floorboards. Morning lifted slow and pale over Silver Creek. Fog gathered in the firs like wool, and the clearing held a damp chill that seeped through boots and sleeves. A weak ribbon of light slipped past the clouded window and laid itself across the plank floor. The stove kept a low red core. The room smelled faintly of iron, ash, and wet wood. Evelyn woke first. She listened. No scraping, only the soft click of cooling metal and the hush of trees exhaling after rain. Noah slept on his side, one hand over the whistle at his chest, mouth parted just enough to show the easy sleep she hadn't seen on him in months. She fed the coals, set water to boil, and eased the door open. Cold air pressed in, clean with pine and wet soil. Outside, the world wore last night's weather. Mud slick at the porch steps, needles stuck to the rails, a tiny runnel of water cutting through the low spot in the yard. At the tree line, a thrush started up, then fell quiet, as if it had remembered something. Evelyn scanned the ground the way habit had taught her. Edges first, then center, then shadows. No prints near the steps, but under the porch the dirt looked scuffed, not by small feet, but by something heavier, wider. She crouched, put 2 fingers to the soil, and felt the cool hold of shade. By the time Noah sat up, hair at all angles, cocoa steamed in 2 tin mugs on the table. Did it come back? He asked. I don't know, Evelyn said. We'll take a look after we eat. They cleaned what the night had let alone. Windows propped for air, corners cleared of web and dust. When the room no longer smelled like someone else's years, Noah went quiet and pressed his ear to the floor near the back wall. He tapped once, twice. The sound came back hollow. "There's space under here," he said. "Crawl space," she answered. "Could be vents, could be rot." She kept her tone even, not dismissing his curiosity. Curiosity was a better engine than fear. They worked until noon, soup warming on the stove again, the last of the bread sliced thin. They ate on the porch, fog lifted and thinned so you could see the creek glancing between trees. That was when something moved low along the brush line, gold against dark, quick, then halting. Noah was the first to point. "There," he whispered. Evelyn followed the motion. A dog, medium large, coat the color of field straw in late summer, feathering damp along tail and hind legs, moving with a pull on one foreleg. It paused, head high, ears slightly back. Brown eyes trying to sort the calculus of risk and need. Then it slipped under a deadfall and was gone. "Stay put," Evelyn said. She stepped down into the clearing, scanning for sign. In the soft mud she found paw prints, wide, webbed toes, nails blunted by use. Print, drag, print. Not coyote, not raccoon. She followed the line as it curled toward the cabin's skirt boards and ended where the shadows began. She crouched and peered into the darkness under the porch. The smell rose first, earth, wet fur, and a sharp edge of old blood. At the back, a shape drew in on itself, then lifted its head. Warm, liquid eyes reflected the daylight and held. "Easy," Evelyn said, the voice she used intense when a stranger's pain had to trust her hands. She set a small bowl of water and a heel of bread just past the shadow line. A low sound came back. Not a growl, not exactly, more like a warning softened by exhaustion. She backed away and sat on the step. "We'll give her time," she told Noah. An hour later, the bowl was empty, the bread gone, and the shadows under the porch were only shadows. By late afternoon, the wind picked up, and the forest began its low talk. Inside, the stove drew steady. As dusk slid across the windows, the sound returned. Under the floor this time, scrape, pause, scrape, a measured pull, like a body that had learned pain's timetable. Noah didn't wait. "Mom," he said, already moving to the back wall. "I hear it," she answered. She lit the lantern, rolled the rug back, and knelt by the loose boards she'd noted yesterday. Nails orange with rust, edges lifted a fraction from the joists. The screwdriver bit, metal complained, and the first board levered up with a groan. Cold air swelled from the dark space, bringing the smell with it. Fur, damp wood, a mint of old sap. She lowered the lantern. A face looked up, narrower muzzle, broad brow, ears set a little back. The open, humanish look that people love, dulled now by hunger and worry. A golden retriever lay tucked in the hollow, her coat a tangle of wet gold and burrs, long feathering muddied into ropes along her legs and tail. Her ribs stood clear, each breath rucking the fur between them. One foreleg was scored with a long, crusted cut, the skin around it angry but not fresh. She blinked in the light and pressed her chin to the floor, as if making herself smaller would make the light kinder. "She's a golden," Noah said, the word full of wonder. "And a tough one," Evelyn said. "Hey, girl." She slipped her hand under the board, palm up, wrist easy, the way you offer your scent without threat. The dog's nose touched her skin, warm and slightly dry, then tipped away. No teeth, no warning, just the small calculation of a heart, deciding whether it can afford to hope. They widened the opening and laid a blanket halfway into the space. Evelyn took her time. She spoke, low and steady, about nothing and everything. The dog's body loosened by degrees. When she tried to crawl forward, her bad leg failed her, and she let out a sound that wasn't a cry so much as a complaint she'd run out of language for. "I've got you," Evelyn said. And, moving slow, she slid an arm under the dog's chest, another under her haunches, and lifted. The weight surprised her, even starved. A golden carried more than your arms think until they know. The dog didn't fight. She only shook, then settled, trusting that the seat lift. Near the stove, on the blanket, she lay with one paw tucked under as if to apologize for taking space. Up close, you could read her age, 5 or 6 maybe, teeth worn smooth, muzzle graying at the edges. Her coat, even filthy, kept its promise of silk where it was still dry. Her eyes stayed on Noah and Evelyn, moving between them like she was learning their grammar. Evelyn cleaned the wound with boiled water and what was left of the antiseptic wipes. She trimmed away a mat of fur where the cut tugged. The golden endured the sting, breath quick, lips lifting once, then settling when Noah's hand found the shoulder and stayed there, light but steady. "Good girl," he said. "Good girl." The dog's tail gave a single thump, tentative, as if she were testing whether joy was still allowed. They fed her small, broth first, then a few softened pieces of bread, then more broth. She ate with the focus of a creature who had learned that meals can be negotiations with time. After, she set her head on her paws and closed her eyes, not fully, but enough to show she had ceded the watch to someone else, at least for a while. "Name?" Noah asked. "Let's wait," Evelyn said, but her eyes had already softened. A name makes a line between leaving and staying. When Noah had gone to brush his teeth with boiled water in a cup, Evelyn stood to stretch the ache from her back. Something caught her eye, a glint by the stove leg where the lantern light pooled. She crouched and reached under, fingers brushing cold grit, then a thin chain. She drew it out, a bent rusted tag on a broken length of beaded chain. Dirt flaked away under her thumb. Letters rose, faint, but there. Scout. Silver Creek Rescue Unit 4. She looked across the room to the mantel where the cracked photograph stood. The man in yellow Nomex, the patch on his shoulder, the forest boiled black behind him. The line connected in her chest, quiet and heavy, as if a door in an old house had swung open on its own. She sat back on her heels and said it aloud, not a command, not a test, just an invitation. "Scout!" The golden's ear twitched, her eyes opened, soft and amber brown, and fixed on Evelyn's mouth. The tail moved, twice certain now, and the dog pushed her chin into Noah's knee, as if to say, "You found the word I was waiting for." Outside, the wind dropped. The creek ran louder for it. Evelyn tied the tag's broken chain to a scrap of twine and looped it loosely around the dog's neck to keep from losing it again. The metal lay against matted fur, a little badge of the life that had brought her here and didn't quite let go. "Where did you come from, girl?" Evelyn asked, hand resting in the clean curve behind the dog's ear. Retrievers are built for carrying and returning, for water and work, for people. Search and rescue crews use them because they want to say yes. This one had said yes to something that had hurt her. Noah stretched out on his stomach, beside Scout, chin propped on his hands. "Do you think she knows the man in the picture?" he asked. "I think she worked with people like him," Evelyn said. "Maybe with him." She considered the wound, the weight, the way Scout had chosen the warmth under their floor instead of running. And I think she was trying to get back to something she remembered. They made up their beds near the stove again. Scout shifted once, arranged herself with a sigh, and let her eyes fall closed. Noah's hand stayed on her ribs until his breathing leveled and slowed. Evelyn sat a while longer, boots off, socks drying on the hearth rail, mind walking through inventory. Food, water, a proper bandage tomorrow, a call to town to ask about veterinarians, a visit to the ranger station, the man in the photograph. Someone would know his name. She felt the old disciplined calm move through her, the way work organizes grief into pieces you can carry. Rain started again, lighter this time, a soft hiss on the roof. The stove ticked, the cabin settled, and somewhere under the new quiet, a thread of relief tugged. The scraping beneath their feet was no longer a worry without a face. It had a name, a weight, a warm breath against a boy's knee. "Welcome home, Scout," Evelyn said. And for the first time since they had turned onto the two-lane and left the last streetlight behind, the word home didn't feel like a test. It felt like something they were building, board by board, together. The storm had passed, leaving the forest washed and quiet. Mist clung low across the clearing, and the cabin breathed out faint curls of smoke from its tin chimney. Inside, Evelyn moved with the calm precision of habit. Scout slept near the stove, her golden coat brushed clean and drying in the gentle heat. Noah sat cross-legged beside her, sketching the outline of the dog in his notebook. He'd drawn the slope of the ears, the ripple of fur, and even the way one paw curved inward when she rested. "Looks like her," Evelyn said, glancing over. "She's easier to draw than people," Noah replied without looking up. "People move too much." Scout opened one eye at the sound of her name, her tail giving a slow, thudding beat on the wooden floor. The wound on her leg had started to close. Evelyn checked it twice a day, cleaning the edges with boiled water and salve. The dog had eaten well that morning, her appetite returning along with her awareness. Evelyn had started keeping small notes: temperature, food intake, bandage changes, old nurse habits she couldn't turn off. Beneath her steady hand, Scout was coming back to herself, though sometimes she would lift her head at the faintest noise and listen long after Evelyn and Noah had heard nothing at all. Late that morning, while Noah fed Scout the last of their broth-thick rice, Evelyn went outside to cut wood. The forest steamed in the thaw. She'd just split a log when she caught movement along the tree line. A figure, dark coat, steady stride. She tightened her grip on the axe. The man approached slowly, raising one gloved hand in greeting. "Morning," he called, voice carrying the rasp of cold air and age. He stopped at the edge of the clearing, not wanting to startle her. Evelyn straightened, resting the axe head in the dirt. "Can I help you?" "Name's Cole Walker, ranger out of Silver Creek Station." He tipped his hat, revealing weathered features, mid-40s, maybe older, with the kind of build that came from years outdoors. Broad shoulders, a bit of a stoop from long hikes. His face carried the map of that life. Deep lines at the eyes, a short beard peppered with gray, and the sun-scorched tone of a man who never quite lost the field. His dark green jacket bore the Park Service badge, worn to dull brass. "I saw smoke. Didn't expect anyone to take this place. Most folks say it's cursed." Evelyn raised an eyebrow. "Cursed how?" He smiled slightly. "Old stories, fires, accidents. Couple of hunters claim they saw lights here at night. This cabin's been empty near 10 years. "Well, it's ours now," she said, matter of fact. Cole studied her a moment, recognizing the firmness of someone who had already fought through worse than local gossip. "You and your boy here alone?" "Yes." Her tone didn't invite pity. He nodded, taking the hint. "If you need supplies or to report anything odd, tracks, trespassers, stations, just 5 miles down the ridge road." He hesitated, then added, "That's a fine dog you've got. Haven't seen a retriever that color around here in a while." "She found us," Evelyn said. Cole looked at her sharply. "Found you?" Evelyn told him, briefly, about the noises under the floor and the discovery of Scout, careful not to mention the tag yet. His brow furrowed as he listened. "That's strange," he said. "Silver Creek Rescue used to train dogs like that before funding ran dry. Golden retrievers mostly, friendly, steady under pressure. There was a team wiped out in a wildfire north of here about 8 years ago. Some of their animals never got accounted for." Evelyn felt her stomach tighten. "Do you remember the handler's name?" Cole thought for a moment, eyes narrowing slightly. "I worked alongside a few. One of them was named Reed, Mark Reed. Good man, took too many risks. Stayed behind to get his partner dog out of a burning ravine. Neither of them were found." Evelyn kept her face still, though inside, something shifted. The name landed in her chest like a stone dropped into water, the ripples spreading too fast to stop. She'd heard it before, in her husband's letters. Mark Reed. Cole noticed her silence. "You knew him?" "Not directly," she said after a beat. "My husband served with the emergency units too. They worked the same fires sometimes." Cole nodded slowly, not pressing further. "If this is one of Reed's dogs, you might have something special on your hands." "Special?" "Those animals were trained for rescue scent work. If she still remembers, she'll protect whoever she thinks is her team." He glanced toward the door. "But be careful. Dogs with that kind of history can startle easy. Trauma sticks, even with them." Scout barked once from inside, a deep, commanding sound that made Cole turn his head. "Well," he said with a wry smile, "she doesn't sound like she's planning to run off." He tipped his hat again. "You folks settle in. Snow will come again before the week's out. And if you need help, radio's open at the station." After he left, Evelyn stood in the silence he'd left behind. The name still circled in her mind. Mark Reed, the man in the yellow Nomex jacket from the photograph. That night, she told Noah a little about Cole, describing the ranger as a man who looks like he belongs to the trees. Noah seemed interested, but more concerned with Scout, who had started pacing near the door as if waiting for someone. Evelyn set her hand on the dog's head. "You know that name, don't you?" she murmured. Scout looked up at her, eyes reflecting the firelight. Her ears pricked at a sound only she could hear. Maybe wind through the ridge, maybe memory. Later, when Noah slept, Evelyn sat at the table with her notebook. She wrote the words slowly, carefully. Scout, Golden Retriever, female, approx. Years. Rescue tag, Silver Creek Unit 4, handler possibly Mark Reed. Under it, she added, found beneath cabin, wounded, survived alone. Why here? The questions didn't stop. How had Scout traveled this far, wounded, after so many years? Why had she come to this specific cabin? And what did Cole mean by lights at night? A dull thud broke her thoughts, the sound of paws against the porch. Evelyn looked up, heart quickening. Scout was at the door, growling low, ears forward. Evelyn reached for the lantern and stepped closer. "What is it, girl?" The growl deepened. Through the small window, Evelyn caught movement at the edge of the clearing, a shape slipping between trees, tall, unhurried. Then it was gone. Scout's fur bristled, a ridge of gold along her back. Evelyn bolted the door and crouched beside her, whispering, "It's okay, we're safe." But even after Scout settled, Evelyn didn't sleep. In the morning, she found footprints in the snow-damp soil near the trees, heavy boots, the heel tread deep. Whoever it was hadn't come close, only watched. The forest beyond was still, indifferent, as if it held its secrets for whoever had the patience to listen. She brushed her palms on her jeans and looked down at Scout. "Looks like we're not the only ones interested in this place," she said. The dog tilted her head, waiting. Evelyn gave a half smile. "Good thing we've got you." As she spoke, the morning wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and something faintly metallic, smoke or rust, she couldn't tell. Scout's ears turned toward the ridge. Evelyn followed her gaze. Somewhere up there, in the folds of the forest, someone was moving, and though she didn't yet know who, she was certain of one thing. The quiet of Silver Creek was starting to wake. By the third day, Silver Creek had turned bright and cold, sunlight cutting through the trees in clean golden bars. The air was sharp enough to taste. Evelyn stood on the porch with a mug of instant coffee, watching the steam fade against the pale blue morning. Scout trotted a slow circle around the clearing, her limp easing with every day of warmth and rest. She paused now and then to sniff at the ground near the tree line, the same stretch where Evelyn had found the footprints yesterday. The marks had softened overnight, but the shape was still there, a deep heel and wide sole. Someone heavy, deliberate. Noah sat on the steps with his sketchbook balanced on his knees, drawing Scout mid-stride. "Do you think he's still out there?" he asked quietly. Evelyn didn't look away from the woods. "I think whoever it was has better things to do than hang around here." She said it to calm him, but the words didn't quite reach her own conviction. The forest felt different now, not hostile, but watchful. That afternoon, they drove into town for the first time since arriving. The road wound down through the pines and opened into the narrow main street of Silver Creek, still damp from thaw. The town looked stitched together from two different centuries, old wood storefronts with new aluminum roofs, a faded mural of trout on the side of a closed diner, and a single traffic light that blinked yellow all day. They stopped first at the hardware store. Inside, the smell of oil, pine, and cold metal filled the air. Behind the counter stood a tall, spare man with wire-rimmed glasses and a beard trimmed close. He looked to be in his 50s, maybe older, with shoulders slightly bent and hands stained by years of handling tools and weather. His name tag read, M. Garrison. "Morning," he said, voice deep and careful, the kind of tone that belonged to someone who thought twice before speaking. "You must be the folks who took the old cabin up on the ridge." Evelyn nodded. "Trying to make it livable. Brave," he said with a half smile. "That place has seen more winters than sense." He helped them gather supplies, nails, lamp oil, tarps, dog food, and a new axe handle. "Haven't been many new faces around here since the fires," Garrison said while ringing her up. "Ridgeland's quiet, but quiet isn't always peace." Evelyn met his eyes. "Meaning?" He shrugged, his mouth twitching toward humor, but not reaching it. "People say that stretch remembers. Every now and then someone hears voices on the wind or smells smoke when there's none around. Most don't go near after dark." Noah looked up from where he was examining a display of hunting knives. "Did somebody die there?" Garrison hesitated. "Plenty have, but one sticks. Fire captain went missing during the 17 blaze. Mark Reed. Good man. I was there when they brought back his truck. Seat melted to the frame. They said his dog ran off into the trees trying to find him." He looked at Evelyn, not unkindly. "You staying out there, you'll hear stories. Don't let them do your thinking for you." Evelyn thanked him, loaded the supplies, and drove to the grocery store for canned goods and flour. As she pushed the cart down narrow aisles, she noticed an older woman stocking the shelf by the window, humming under her breath. The woman was round-shouldered and soft-faced, with silver hair braided into a crown. A name tag pinned to her cardigan read, Marjorie Keene. "You're new here," Marjorie said without turning. Her voice was warm, the kind that invited answers. "Cabin up the ridge," Evelyn replied. Marjorie straightened, wiping her hands on her apron. "Lord, that place again. I thought it had fallen down by now." Her expression softened when she saw Noah standing behind the cart, holding a box of crackers. "And you brought company. That's good. Places like that don't like being empty too long." Evelyn smiled politely, not sure how to respond. Marjorie tilted her head. "You have a dog, don't you? I saw paw prints in the snow this morning on the back road." "A golden. She found us, actually." The woman's brow furrowed. "Golden retriever with a scar along her leg?" Evelyn froze. "Yes?" Marjorie's hands dropped to her sides. "Oh, honey. I think that's Reed's dog. Scout, wasn't it? My husband was part of the volunteer search back then. Said the animal ran herself raw trying to circle the fire lines. They never found her body." For a moment, the store went quiet, except for the hum of the coolers. Evelyn's pulse quickened. "You're sure it was the same name?" "Positive. That dog used to visit my shop. I ran the old art supply place before arthritis took my hands. Sweet thing. Always carried Reed's gloves in her mouth like a badge." Marjorie's voice softened. "Guess she came home after all." The drive back up the ridge was silent. Noah looked out the window, tracing his finger along the fogged glass. "So Scout was his dog," he said. "Yes." Evelyn's voice was steady, but her thoughts weren't. She kept seeing the photograph on the mantel, Mark Reed's smile, the smoke-black trees behind him, the same trees that now surrounded their home. When they pulled into the clearing, the air felt thicker, as if the forest had been holding its breath. Scout ran out to meet them, her gait quick despite the limp. She circled the truck, nose twitching, tail waving. Evelyn unloaded supplies while Noah filled Scout's bowl. The dog ate, then walked straight to the back wall of the cabin, the one that bordered the woods, and stood still, staring into the trees. That night the wind changed, coming down from the ridge, carrying the scent of ash. The fire in the stove popped, throwing orange light across the room. Evelyn sat by the table, the old tag in her hand. The words Silver Creek Rescue Unit 4 glimmered faintly in the flame's reflection. Scout stirred by the door, her ears lifting. A second later, a faint sound came, a low hum, like metal shifting under strain. Then, faintly, the smell of smoke. Evelyn rose, heart kicking. She opened the door. Cold air rushed in, clean, no smoke. But somewhere beyond the ridge, a faint orange flicker glowed through the trees. "Mom?" Noah's voice trembled from behind her. Evelyn stepped onto the porch, Scout pressing close to her leg. The light wasn't wildfire bright, but steady, rhythmic, the pulse of a flame controlled by someone's hand. "Stay inside," she said. She moved forward a few steps, the night swallowing her sound. The glow came from a clearing deeper in, near the old fire break. As she drew closer, the shape resolved. A lantern, swinging from a low branch. Beneath it, the snow was trampled. Boot prints again. Then a voice, low and deliberate. "You shouldn't be here." Evelyn froze. A man stepped from behind the trees, tall, shoulders narrow, beard rough and unkempt, wearing a patched canvas coat. His eyes were sharp, deep-set under a heavy brow. He carried the look of someone who had lived too long outdoors, skin windburned, hands scarred, a man built on survival rather than comfort. "I'm just living in the cabin," Evelyn said evenly. He studied her, his expression unreadable. "You don't belong up here. That place has ghosts that still burn." "Who are you?" The man didn't answer. His gaze flicked to Scout, who growled softly. "You found her," he said, almost to himself. "She's still alive." "You know this dog?" Evelyn asked. His face hardened. "Everyone who fought the ridge fire knew that dog." He turned, looking back toward the trees. "You stay another week, and you'll find out what it cost her to come back." Then he walked away, fading into the dark, as the lantern swung in the wind. Evelyn stood there a long time before returning to the cabin. Inside, Scout was waiting, eyes fixed on the door. The smell of smoke was gone, but the feeling of it stayed. "Who was he?" Noah asked. "I don't know," she said quietly, locking the door, "but I think he's one of the ghosts that never left." Scout pressed her head against Evelyn's leg. Outside, the forest went still again, a silence too deep to trust. The next morning broke in pale gray silence, the kind that makes even the birds hesitate. A thin frost glazed the porch rail, and Scout's paw prints traced a pattern across the clearing where she'd wandered before sunrise. Evelyn stood at the window, mug in hand, watching the forest through a thin veil of fog. The events of the previous night sat heavy in her chest. The voice in the woods, the man's warning, the way he had said Scout's name, as if it belonged to a past neither of them could outrun. Noah slept on the couch, curled under a blanket, his sketchbook still open beside him. He had drawn the lantern in the trees, lines dark and trembling, and below it, a silhouette with hollow eyes. Evelyn turned away from it and focused on the list she had written. Fix the roof seam, check chimney vent, find batteries. But the words blurred, replaced by the memory of that voice. You'll find out what it cost her to come back. She decided to go to the ranger station. Cole Walker had offered help, and she needed answers about the fire, the cabin, and whoever was wandering the ridge at night. She left Noah in charge of Scout with clear instructions. Stay close, keep the doors locked, radio if anything happens. He nodded solemnly, too aware now of how quickly quiet could shift. The road to the station wound through dense pine, the frost melting into thin threads of mist that curled off the asphalt. The ranger station appeared suddenly at the bend, a low timber building with a green metal roof, a flag stiff in the cold wind. Evelyn parked beside a mud-spattered truck and stepped out. Cole was chopping wood near the shed, sleeves rolled to his elbows despite the cold. His forearms were roped with muscle, skin tanned and scarred from years of field work. A streak of gray ran through his beard, catching the light when he looked up. "Didn't expect you this early," he said, setting the axe aside. "I had a visitor last night," she said. He frowned. "Who?" "I don't know his name. Tall, lean, beard, rough coat. Said I shouldn't be up there. He knew Scout. Said she'd already paid to survive." Cole's brow tightened. He gestured her toward the office. Inside, the walls were lined with maps, burn zones, terrain outlines, faded photos from old fires. He poured coffee into a dented mug and handed it to her. "There's only one man fits that description," he said. "Caleb Holt." Evelyn repeated the name. "Who is he?" Cole leaned against the desk. "He was a firefighter, same crew as Mark Reed. When the blaze hit in 17, he stayed behind to try and cut a new fire break. Lost 3 of his men. They say he walked out 2 days later, burned and half conscious. Never went back to the service. Built himself a shack up near the old quarry. Folks see him sometimes, trapping, scavenging, talking to ghosts. He doesn't take kindly to strangers. He said there were ghosts that still burn, Cole's, mouth pressed into a grim line. Maybe for him there are. He's got survivor's guilt in his bones. I've seen it. The kind that doesn't let you sleep more than an hour at a time. Evelyn studied him. "Did you know Mark Reed?" "Not well," Cole said, "but I knew of him. He was the one you called when things got bad. Stubborn, but good-hearted. He trained most of the rescue dogs himself. They say his last order before the fire took him was to release the animals. Maybe that's how Scout got out." Evelyn looked down at her hands. "She found us." Maybe she was looking for what was left of him. A silence stretched between them, filled with the ticking of a wall clock. Cole straightened. "I'll drive up tonight, check the property line. If Holt's nosing around, you don't want to face him alone. He's not dangerous unless you corner him, but he's unpredictable." Evelyn hesitated. "No, you've got your job. I'll handle it." He studied her face, the steadiness behind her eyes. "You sound like every first responder I ever met, too proud to ask for backup. Or just tired of waiting for it," she said quietly. Cole nodded once, respectful. "Then at least keep the radio close. Channel 4. I'll be listening." When she returned to the cabin, the day had turned brittle and bright. Noah met her at the porch with Scout at his side. "She kept barking at the woods," he said, "like someone was out there." Evelyn scanned the tree line but saw only the sway of branches. "It's fine. Let's keep her inside for now." That evening, while Noah did homework at the table, Evelyn set to mending the roof seam. She climbed onto the low slope with a bucket of sealant and a brush, the cold air biting her fingers through the gloves. The valley below was washed in gold, the trees whispering. From up here, she could see the old fire break, a scar of earth cutting through the forest. The sight made her stomach twist. She finished near dusk and climbed down. As she latched the ladder, a flicker of movement caught her eye, something shiny wedged between 2 porch planks. She pried it loose, a small brass buckle, half melted. Letters were stamped along the edge, Unit 4. She showed it to Noah after dinner. "From the fire?" he asked. Maybe, or maybe someone dropped it recently. Scout, hearing the word fire, lifted her head, ears alert. Evelyn set the buckle down. The dog sniffed it, then backed away, tail low, a soft whine slipping out of her throat. That night, snow began to fall, dry flakes swirling like dust in the lantern light. The cabin felt smaller in the storm, the roof creaking, wind threading through the gaps in the doorframe. Evelyn checked the locks twice before settling on the couch with her notebook. She wrote, "Caleb Holt, alive. Cole says he was with Reed. Why approach me now?" Scout's reaction, recognition. She set the pen down when she heard it. Soft scratching, not under the floor this time, but at the window. Scout growled low, the sound rolling through her chest. Evelyn crossed the room, lantern raised. The frosted glass glowed faintly with the storm's reflection, and behind it, the outline of a hand. She froze. The hand lowered, leaving only the smudge of warmth on the glass. When she yanked the door open, wind rushed in, biting her skin. The yard was empty except for fresh footprints leading toward the trees. Evelyn's pulse hammered. She called out, "Who's there?" No answer. Only the hiss of falling snow and the soft thud of Scout's paws as the dog bounded ahead, stopping at the tree line, growling. Evelyn followed a few steps, then stopped when she saw what hung from the low branch at the edge of the clearing, a length of chain, broken at one end. Her throat went dry. She reached for it, and a faint voice, almost memory, echoed in her mind. "You'll find out what it cost her to come back." Back inside, she barred the door and stood by the stove, heart still racing. The chain lay on the table beside the melted buckle and the rescue tag. 3 pieces of a story she didn't yet understand, all tied to the same fire, the same man, the same dog. Noah stirred from his blanket. "Mom, what's wrong?" "Nothing," she said, though her voice betrayed her. "Go back to sleep." He watched her for a moment, then looked at Scout, who hadn't moved from the door. "She's still listening," he whispered. Evelyn sank into the chair, the fire casting orange light across her face. Scout's eyes glowed in the shadows, fixed on the forest beyond. Outside, the storm thickened, swallowing the world in white. Somewhere out there, a man haunted by fire still walked the ridge. And inside, a woman who had already lost too much sat waiting, not for fear this time, but for truth. The storm passed overnight, leaving the air raw and still. Snow clung to the branches like a fine lace, and the world beyond the cabin seemed hushed, as if it were listening. Evelyn woke before dawn, drawn from sleep by Scout's low rumble. The dog stood at the window, muscles taut, tail stiff, nose pressed to the frost-bitten glass. Evelyn followed her gaze. There was nothing but white, no tracks, no shadow, yet the silence carried weight. She dressed quietly, boots, coat, gloves, then filled a thermos. Noah stirred on the couch, his hair tangled. "You're going out?" "Just around the ridge," she said. "Stay inside with Scout." He nodded, eyes heavy with unease. Scout watched her move, ears back, torn between duty and the command to stay. "Guard him," Evelyn whispered, brushing her fingers over the dog's head. The warmth of the fur lingered even as she stepped into the cold. The snow was clean and shallow near the cabin, but deeper along the trail. She followed the old fire road until the trees grew denser, the sun barely breaking through the canopy. Frost coated the undergrowth like glass. A crow called once, far off, and then fell silent again. Evelyn found the prints where she expected, the same boot tread she'd seen before, moving downhill toward the creek. The path wound around fallen logs and opened into a hollow sheltered from the wind. There, beneath a pine blackened from long-ago flames, stood the remains of a camp. A small fire ring, charred metal cans, and a crude lean-to half-collapsed beneath snow. Beside it, she found a shovel, its handle wrapped with strips of worn leather. The initials CH were carved near the base. Evelyn crouched, brushing away snow from the ground. Ash, charcoal. A faint trace of smoke still clung to the air, sharp and dry, too recent to be from years ago. She turned when a voice came from behind her. "You shouldn't have followed." Caleb Holt emerged from the trees, his figure solid against the gray. He wore the same patched coat, lined with soot and years. His hair, long enough to curl over his collar, was streaked with silver despite his age, mid-40s perhaps. His beard had grown uneven, salt and pepper, covering a jaw sharp as stone. His eyes, a pale green, carried that hollow glaze of men who'd watched fire eat the world and hadn't blinked. "I don't like people sneaking up on me," Evelyn said, standing her ground. He gave a humorless smile. "Then we're even." She looked around. "You live out here?" "Survive," he corrected. "Different thing." His gaze flicked to her hands. "You're holding Reed's buckle, aren't you?" She hesitated. "You left it near my cabin." Caleb stepped closer, the snow crunching beneath his boots. "It belonged to him. I carried it for years until I couldn't anymore. You found Scout, didn't you?" "Yes," Evelyn said. She was under the floor, hurt, hungry. "She's healing now." His expression softened, the first real crack in the stone of his face. "She found her way back after the fire. I searched for her for days. We'd hear her barking through the smoke. When we found the collar, we thought—" He stopped himself, breathing out a low laugh that sounded more like grief. "Guess she's stronger than all of us." Evelyn studied him. "You were there when Reed died." He looked away. "I was supposed to be. I got caught in the lower ravine when the wind turned. By the time I made it out, the line had jumped. Reed was up ahead trying to free the dogs. We never saw him again, only fire. Sometimes I still hear him shouting orders through the radio. Sometimes it's just the wind." "You left the chain on my tree," she said quietly. Caleb's jaw tightened. "I was warning you. That cabin, it's where they pulled the bodies after the collapse. Reed's team used it as a staging post before the blaze took it. Thought maybe it'd stay buried, but Scout must have come back there, maybe looking for him." Evelyn felt a shiver crawl along her arms. "You said she paid to survive. What did you mean?" He met her eyes, the pale green gone distant. "When the ridge went up, the crew was cut off. Reed ordered the dogs to lead them out. They went different directions, trying to find clear ground. Scout came back, dragging one of the men who'd passed out from smoke. She wouldn't leave him. When we found them, the man was gone, but she was still there, half burned, guarding what was left. That's what it cost her." Silence fell heavy. The snow started again, fine and soft. Evelyn's breath clouded between them. "She still remembers," Evelyn said. "She always will," Caleb answered. "Dogs like that don't forget. Neither do men who left others behind." He turned away, motioning toward the ridge. "You and your boy need to get out. That place isn't for the living anymore. We have nowhere else," she said. He paused, looking back at her. "Then keep the fire burning at night. She trusts that. Reed used to say the light tells them where home is." Before she could reply, he was gone, swallowed by the trees, his footsteps fading into the hush of falling snow. Evelyn stood for a long moment, staring at the spot where he had vanished. The hollow felt heavier now, as though the ground itself remembered what he'd said. She took one last look at the burned pine, then turned toward home. When she reached the cabin, Noah ran to the door, relief flooding his face. "You were gone forever," he said. "Just a few hours," she replied, brushing snow from her coat. "Scout wouldn't move from the window," he added. She kept whining like she knew something. Evelyn crouched and touched the dog's face. She did. They spent the rest of the afternoon fixing the roof and sealing the door gaps against the cold. Noah hummed while he worked, a quiet, steady sound that filled the silence. At dusk, Evelyn lit the stove and set a single lantern by the window. The flame trembled, throwing long shadows across the wall. Scout lay near it, eyes half closed, nose twitching every time the wind shifted. Later, as Noah drifted to sleep, Evelyn sat with her notebook. She wrote, "Caleb Holt, survivor, Reed's teammate, cabin used as staging post during fire. Scout saved a man, stayed behind. The cost? Loyalty beyond survival." Her pen slowed. She stared at the words until they blurred, then looked up. Through the window, the forest was dark again, but not empty. Somewhere out there, a man haunted by fire walked through his own ghosts, and a dog who'd once dragged a dying man through smoke had found a new family to protect. Scout lifted her head suddenly, tail thumping once. Evelyn followed her gaze to the door. A faint scratch, then silence. She stood, crossed the room, and opened it slowly. On the porch sat a small, folded note weighted by a piece of charred wood. She picked it up and read the words scrawled in rough pencil. "The fire's coming back." Her breath caught. She turned to the trees, the ridge rising black and silent. Somewhere beneath that snow lay the ashes of the past, but perhaps not all of it had died. Inside, the lantern flickered. Scout whined, shifting closer to the window. Evelyn placed her hand on the dog's back. "We'll be ready," she whispered. Outside, snow kept falling, soft, relentless, covering everything except the faint trail of footprints leading away from the porch. The warning note stayed on the table all night. Evelyn couldn't bring herself to throw it away, though the sight of it made her stomach clench. By morning, the ink had bled faintly into the paper, the words "the fire's coming back," smudged like smoke stains. The storm had cleared, but the cold carried a brittle sharpness. Scout had barely slept, pacing the door and letting out short, uneasy growls at every creak of the cabin. When Noah woke, he asked the question that Evelyn had been avoiding. "Mom, what if he's right? What if there's another fire?" Evelyn stirred the coals in the stove, watching sparks leap and fade. "Then we'll see it before it gets too close," she said, her voice calm but deliberate. "I've seen enough fires to know how they start." That wasn't entirely true. She'd seen the aftermath. The hollow shells of homes, the smoke that clung to clothes for months, the strange quiet of neighborhoods turned to ash. But she had never stood in the path of one. By noon, she decided to head back into town. The note had to be shown to someone, Cole Walker, preferably. He was the only person who would take it seriously. She told Noah to stay inside again, lock the doors, and keep Scout with him. "If anything feels wrong," she said, "don't wait. Take the truck and drive straight to the station." The drive down the ridge was slow. Snowmelt had turned the road into slush and shadow. By the time she reached Silver Creek, the sun was low and pale behind the peaks. She found Cole at the ranger station, leaning over a map spread across his desk. His jacket hung from the back of his chair, and a half-eaten sandwich sat forgotten beside the radio. He looked up when she entered, his brow furrowing immediately. "Evelyn, you look like you've seen a ghost." She set the note down in front of him. "It was on my porch this morning." He read it, jaw tightening. "You think Holt left this?" "He was in the woods yesterday. He knew where we lived." Cole rubbed the stubble on his chin, thinking, "If he's right, and there's fire starting up near the ridge, we need to move fast." He picked up his radio, called in a quick code to the county dispatch. "No reports of active burns yet," he said after a moment. "But that doesn't mean much. Sensors are still down in some sectors." Evelyn crossed her arms. "Could it be arson?" He looked at her sharply. "You think Holt's lighting fires now?" "I don't know what to think," she admitted. "He's carrying a lot of ghosts." Cole exhaled slowly. "So are you." The words stung, though his tone wasn't unkind. He stood and grabbed his coat. "Let's drive up to your place. I'll bring the thermal scope, see if there's heat in the soil. If there's a burn underground, we'll catch it." They left before sunset, his truck leading the way through the winding forest road. The trees loomed darker now, stripped of snow, where wind had brushed them bare. When they reached the clearing, Scout was already on the porch, tail high but tense. Noah opened the door, relief washing over his face when he saw them. "I didn't like you gone so long," he said. Evelyn brushed his hair back. "It's all right. We just need to check something." Cole nodded toward the ridgeline behind the cabin. "That's where you saw the light before?" "Yes, near the old fire break." He shouldered his pack and took the trail with Scout trotting at his side, nose low, ears pricked. The forest was quiet except for the crunch of boots in the thawing snow. They reached the hollow where Evelyn had first met Holt. The ashes from his fire pit had been scattered, the lean-to gone, as if someone had dismantled it overnight. Cole crouched near the ground, running his hand over the soil. "Warm," he muttered, "but not from sun. Feel that?" Evelyn knelt and touched the earth. The warmth was faint, but real, a pulse beneath the frost. "Smoldering roots," Cole said. "Maybe something reignited underground. These old burns can sleep for years, then wake up with a gust of dry wind." He straightened and scanned the tree line with the thermal scope. A low whistle escaped him. "There's a heat pocket about 30 yards east." Evelyn's throat went dry. "What do we do?" "Dig a trench. Cut it off before it crawls uphill." They worked until dusk, shoveling wet soil and snow to smother the faint ember line. Cole moved with practiced rhythm, every swing of his shovel precise. Evelyn followed his lead, the work grounding her, reminding her of what she could control. Scout stayed close, circling the perimeter, occasionally stopping to sniff the wind. When they finished, Cole packed the tools and leaned against a stump. His breath came hard, fogging in the cold. "That should hold for now," he said. "But if Holt's still wandering around out here, he's probably chasing the same ghosts. You might not see him again, or you might see him when you least want to." Evelyn nodded, exhausted. "He warned me, not threatened me. I think he's trying to stop something, not start it." Cole studied her face in the fading light. then gave a slow nod. Maybe you're right. Just don't underestimate what guilt can make a man do. They walked back to the cabin as night fell. Noah had left the lantern burning in the window, a warm square of gold against the growing dark. Scout darted ahead, then stopped suddenly near the porch, hackles raised. Evelyn froze, following her gaze. A figure stood at the far edge of the clearing. The firelight from the window caught the glint of a metal buckle on his coat, the same kind as Reed's. Holt. He raised a hand, not in threat, but warning. Then he pointed toward the ridge behind them. A second later, Evelyn smelled it. Faint, unmistakable. Smoke. Cole swore softly, scanning the trees. That's not from the trench. Holt vanished back into the forest, his voice carrying faintly through the wind. It's not done burning. Evelyn turned to Cole. The fire? He grabbed his radio. Station 2, we've got an active rekindle on the northern ridge. Mobilize a crew. I repeat, active rekindle. The radio crackled in reply. Copy that. ETA 20 minutes. They herded Noah and Scout inside. Cole checked the direction of the wind through the door crack. It's blowing away from us for now, but we're close to the line. Pack essentials, just in case. Noah's eyes were wide but steady. Are we leaving? Not yet, Evelyn said. Not until we know. Scout stood at the window, staring toward the ridge, her body rigid. The orange reflection flickered faintly across her eyes. Evelyn placed her hand on the dog's back. You brought us here for a reason, didn't you? She whispered. Outside, the wind howled, and somewhere beyond it, the faint crackle of flames answered back. The warning note stayed on the table all night. Evelyn couldn't bring herself to throw it away, though the sight of it made her stomach clench. By morning, the ink had bled faintly into the paper, the words, "The fire's coming back," smudged like smoke stains. The storm had cleared, but the cold carried a brittle sharpness. Scout had barely slept, pacing the door and letting out short, uneasy growls at every creak of the cabin. When Noah woke, he asked the question that Evelyn had been avoiding. Mom, what if he's right? What if there's another fire? Evelyn stirred the coals in the stove, watching sparks leap and fade. Then we'll see it before it gets too close, she said, her voice calm but deliberate. I've seen enough fires to know how they start. That wasn't entirely true. She'd seen the aftermath. The hollow shells of homes, the smoke that clung to clothes for months, the strange quiet of neighborhoods turned to ash. But she had never stood in the path of one. By noon, she decided to head back into town. The note had to be shown to someone, Cole Walker, preferably. He was the only person who would take it seriously. She told Noah to stay inside again, lock the doors, and keep Scout with him. If anything feels wrong, she said, don't wait. Take the truck and drive straight to the station. The drive down the ridge was slow. Snowmelt had turned the road into slush and shadow. By the time she reached Silver Creek, the sun was low and pale behind the peaks. She found Cole at the ranger station, leaning over a map spread across his desk. His jacket hung from the back of his chair, and a half-eaten sandwich sat forgotten beside the radio. He looked up when she entered, his brow furrowing immediately. Evelyn, you look like you've seen a ghost. She set the note down in front of him. It was on my porch this morning. He read it, jaw tightening. You think Holt left this? He was in the woods yesterday. He knew where we lived. Cole rubbed the stubble on his chin, thinking, if he's right, and there's fire starting up near the ridge, we need to move fast. He picked up his radio, called in a quick code to the county dispatch. No reports of active burns yet, he said after a moment. But that doesn't mean much. Sensors are still down in some sectors. Evelyn crossed her arms. Could it be arson? He looked at her sharply. You think Holt's lighting fires now? I don't know what to think, she admitted. He's carrying a lot of ghosts. Cole exhaled slowly. So are you. The words stung, though his tone wasn't unkind. He stood and grabbed his coat. Let's drive up to your place. I'll bring the thermal scope. See if there's heat in the soil. If there's a burn underground, we'll catch it. They left before sunset, his truck leading the way through the winding forest road. The trees loomed darker now, stripped of snow, where wind had brushed them bare. When they reached the clearing, Scout was already on the porch, tail high but tense. Noah opened the door, relief washing over his face when he saw them. I didn't like you gone so long, he said. Evelyn brushed his hair back. It's all right. We just need to check something. Cole nodded toward the ridgeline behind the cabin. That's where you saw the light before? Yes, near the old fire break. He shouldered his pack and took the trail with Scout trotting at his side, nose low, ears pricked. The forest was quiet except for the crunch of boots in the thawing snow. They reached the hollow where Evelyn had first met Holt. The ashes from his fire pit had been scattered, the lean-to gone, as if someone had dismantled it overnight. Cole crouched near the ground, running his hand over the soil. Warm, he muttered, but not from sun. Feel that? Evelyn knelt and touched the earth. The warmth was faint, but real, a pulse beneath the frost. Smoldering roots, Cole said. Maybe something reignited underground. These old burns can sleep for years, then wake up with a gust of dry wind. He straightened and scanned the tree line with the thermal scope. A low whistle escaped him. There's a heat pocket about 30 yards east. Evelyn's throat went dry. What do we do? Dig a trench. Cut it off before it crawls uphill. They worked until dusk, shoveling wet soil and snow to smother the faint ember line. Cole moved with practiced rhythm, every swing of his shovel precise. Evelyn followed his lead, the work grounding her, reminding her of what she could control. Scout stayed close, circling the perimeter, occasionally stopping to sniff the wind. When they finished, Cole packed the tools and leaned against a stump. His breath came hard, fogging in the cold. That should hold for now, he said. But if Holt's still wandering around out here, he's probably chasing the same ghosts. You might not see him again, or you might see him when you least want to. Evelyn nodded, exhausted. He warned me, not threatened me. I think he's trying to stop something, not start it. Cole studied her face in the fading light, then gave a slow nod. Maybe you're right. Just don't underestimate what guilt can make a man do. They walked back to the cabin as night fell. Noah had left the lantern burning in the window, a warm square of gold against the growing dark. Scout darted ahead, then stopped suddenly near the porch, hackles raised. Evelyn froze, following her gaze. A figure stood at the far edge of the clearing. The firelight from the window caught the glint of a metal buckle on his coat, the same kind as Reed's. Holt. He raised a hand, not in threat, but warning. Then he pointed toward the ridge behind them. A second later, Evelyn smelled it. Faint, unmistakable. Smoke. Cole swore softly, scanning the trees. That's not from the trench. Holt vanished back into the forest, his voice carrying faintly through the wind. It's not done burning. Evelyn turned to Cole. The fire? He grabbed his radio. Station 2, we've got an active rekindle on the northern ridge. Mobilize a crew. I repeat, active rekindle. The radio crackled in reply. Copy that. ETA 20 minutes. They herded Noah and Scout inside. Cole checked the direction of the wind through the door crack. It's blowing away from us for now, but we're close to the line. Pack essentials, just in case. Noah's eyes were wide but steady. Are we leaving? Not yet, Evelyn said. Not until we know. Scout stood at the window, staring toward the ridge, her body rigid. The orange reflection flickered faintly across her eyes. Evelyn placed her hand on the dog's back. You brought us here for a reason, didn't you? She whispered. Outside, the wind howled, and somewhere beyond it, the faint crackle of flames answered back. When the flames finally died, what remained wasn't just a cabin. It was a promise. A promise that even after loss, even after fire, life can still grow back stronger and full of grace. Evelyn, Noah, and Scout didn't simply survive that night. They were reborn. Because sometimes, God doesn't calm the storm. He walks beside us through it, sending us his quiet miracles in the form of loyal hearts and gentle eyes. Out there in the silence of Silver Creek, surrounded by ashes and new life, Evelyn finally understood. Miracles aren't loud. They don't arrive with lightning or grand signs. They whisper through the steady beating of a heart that refuses to give up, through the warmth of love that returns when we least expect it. So, if this story touched you, share it with someone who might need a reminder that hope still burns brighter than fear. Leave a comment below and tell us what faith means to you. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell, so you'll never miss another story filled with love, redemption, and the quiet miracles that God plants in everyday life. May the Lord bless you and your family, guide you through every storm, and fill your home with the gentle light of his mercy.